This video is gonna age like milk. But, like Vision says in Age of Ultron, a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts. After episode 8, I had a lot of questions, but one big one really got to me. One I honestly hadn't considered before. Partially because of new information, but partially because I think I was distracted by other flashier characters. And that question was, what is Hayward's deal? I thought I understood this character. I thought he was just a jerk. Built up over a few episodes, starting as the friendly authority figure who Monica could trust, but eventually turned into an antagonist. Motivated by fear or a lust for power, he would do bad things, make the situation worse, try to assassinate Wanda, fire Monica, Jimmy, Darcy, but in episode 8, he changed. He was recontextualized, because Hayward has been lying to us. In episode 5, director Hayward told us that Wanda stole the Vision's corpse and resurrected him. But in episode 8, we see the real story. Wanda found the corpse, could not bring it back to life, and left. So, why did Hayward lie? What does he get out of it? And what has he been tracking? Is the Vision in the Hex really vibranium? And in the flashback scene, we see Hayward plant the idea in Wanda's head. Resurrect her soulmate. And he lets Wanda try. What does Hayward get out of that? And the envelope in Wanda's car, the deed to the house, seemed to be mailed to Wanda. Who mailed it to her? Does not appear to be an Agatha thing. Maybe someone wanted Wanda there. So I thought about all of this. And I asked myself, what is the deal with Hayward? What else is he hiding? And then it hit me. The craziest, wildest, stupidest, most unlikely theory I've seen so far. But I think there's something here. So let me share it with you. And you can come back in a few days to tell me how wrong I am. But I think Hayward is another character in disguise. One we are already familiar with. And I've seen people theorize that Hayward is secretly Ultron, which I don't hate, but I don't know. I think I have a wilder theory. But, like, who could it be if not Ultron? Who would make those moves? Like, as much as I would love Justin Hammer to be the secret big bad, this is punching a little above his weight class. We need a character who sees an incredibly powerful magician and an incredibly powerful synthezoid and thinks, I can work them into my world domination plan. And he has to be kind of right. Like, this needs to be somewhat plausible. But also, if Hayward is a disguised character, I don't think he can be completely new. Like, I think the audience needs to be familiar with this character. Someone who everyone could see and most viewers would go, oh yeah, that guy from the other movies. So that Venn diagram, characters that exist in the MCU, and characters who might do something like this, creates a pretty narrow cross-section. A Darren cross-section. Just kidding, not him, definitely not him. But we need ambition, we need competence, and we need familiarity. So here's my guy. And like I said, it is the longest of long shots. But humor me. What if director Hayward is either being possessed by or has been captured and replaced by the Red Skull? I know, but hear me out. We don't know where the Red Skull is. When last we saw him, Red Skull was the Stonekeeper on Vormir, but there aren't any stones anymore. Thanos destroyed the ones in this universe, so maybe the Red Skull is free. Free to roam the galaxy. And where would he go first? Why, Earth, of course. And when he gets to Earth, what would he do? Well, Red Skull is obsessed with the power of the gods, the Infinity Stones, fundamental universal power, so he'd probably try to find the next best thing. The robot who is powered by an Infinity Stone. See if he could turn that robot back on. So, and this is the tricky part, Red Skull either kidnapped and impersonated Hayward, or Red Skull was able to put his own consciousness into Hayward's body, which is something only a true villain would do, Steve Trevor. And those are both things that the Red Skull has done in the past. Red Skull has Del Rusked it, which is to say, Red Skull has taken up a false identity and become part of the government as just that guy, the identity that he creates. A great example of this is when he is Del Rusk in the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon. And then he's also taken over the body of someone already in control. That's the story with Alexander Lukin, who I talked about in my Zemo Isn't Zemo video. The Red Skull's consciousness hopped into Lukin's mind and they share a body. So I can see either of those being options for Red Skull turning into Hayward. Either he killed and took the place of Hayward, wearing a Hayward mask, or he took over Hayward's consciousness and he is in Hayward's body. But okay, so let's get meta. Paul Bettany has said that he will be working with an actor on WandaVision that he has always wanted to work with. I don't think he's said who it is yet, which would suggest that it is an actor we have yet to see. And yes, I have heard the joke answer, which honestly fits pretty well, that when Paul Bettany was talking about that, he was describing a scene where he is playing a Vision and another Vision, and he is acting against himself, the actor he has never been able to work with before. But it also does not appear that Paul Bettany and Hugo Weaving have ever worked together in the past. And you're probably saying, but Hugo Weaving, the Red Skull from Captain America the First Avenger, he doesn't want anything to do with these movies anymore. Kinda. Apparently, Weaving had a really tough time with contract negotiations. Marvel was pretty difficult to work with, and I could totally see that. It's a big company, but according to Weaving, he loved playing the Red Skull, and would have done it if not for contract issues. So if that Marvel dump truck full of money pulled up to the Weaving house, anything is possible. And hey, what if he's only in one scene? Just has a quick conversation with White Vision while in Red Skull form. Maybe he turns off some sort of machine that's projecting the Hayward face, or maybe he just lifts up the Hayward mask and reveals the skull beneath. And then Hayward, the actor that's been playing him up until this point, does all the rest. Seems like a good compromise. Because, you know what? We don't have a really good villain for Phase 4 yet. But for the right price, Red Skull, Hugo Weaving would be a terrific Phase 4 villain, especially since the first two planned projects to be released were Black Widow and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, three very Red Skull connected protagonists. But alright, let's talk evidence. And by evidence, I mean what are more than likely dumb coincidences. First of all, the Red Skull would explain some of the commercials. Not all. The toaster, paper towels, antidepressants, they don't really fit Red Skull in any interesting way. You do have a recurring red color scheme, but obviously that's probably a Scarlet Witch thing. The others, they give some Red Scully hints. Obviously the Hydra watch is connected to the Red Skull, but that's connected to Wanda as well, especially since it's a Strucker watch. But the Tesseract in the Hydra Soak commercial, Wanda never got that. She has no meaningful connection to the Tesseract. And it's a pretty specific object that the Red Skull has always been after, and his pursuit of it eventually sent him to Vormir. And then Yo Magic, the commercial where the boy on the island is given yogurt from the shark. That could be a reference to Wanda not being able to control her magic, but it maps pretty well to the Red Skull. Like the yogurt, while on Vormir, Red Skull guides others to a treasure he cannot possess, and he wastes away, alone. Also, the kid turns into a skull. And another connection. Hayward is not a comic character that I can find. Abigail Brand is usually in charge of S.W.O.R.D. And she's the kind of hard ass that Hayward is in WandaVision, so why a new character? Why this throwaway? And why Hayward? Is it because the letters in his last name can be rearranged to form the word Hydra? Maybe Hayward was a Hydra agent all along. and the Red Skull took over Hayward's body when Red Skull was freed from Vormir. Now, what does this mean for WandaVision? Probably not much. Even if this is true, I mean, Hayward is clearly evil. He's scheming, he's up to something. That doesn't really change. He probably wants an Ultron for evil, whether he is Red Skull or not. And Hayward is going to send his Ultron to fight Wanda's Ultron. But I could see a version of this story where Hayward gets found out by Wanda and escapes. Maybe she breaks out of the hex, goes up to Hayward and senses that something's off with him. And he, I don't know, sets off an explosive or creates a distraction and then jumps away into a helicopter like Cobra Commander and becomes the new big bad of Phase 4 as the Red Skull. Is it likely? Hell no. Is it possible? Probably not. But would it be cool? Absolutely. And if I have to pick one character who is currently free in the MCU to rip off his Hayward mask and reveal that it was him all along, I think Red Skull is the only pick. But hey, that's just a theory. A film, I mean, And hey, this video is brought to you by my patrons. Thank you all so much. You guys give me the ability to do weird, out there videos like this. I also want to thank a heroic patron who suggested that maybe Hayward isn't the villain I'm suggesting he is. However, maybe Hayward is working for that character. I think that could also make a lot of sense. If you want to become a patron, patreon.com/NandoViewMovies. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. Also, listen to my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking, where every week me and my co-hosts DJ and Diggins pick apart a piece of pop culture by looking exclusively at the details. We'll talk about WandaVision once that wraps up. And we'll almost certainly talk about all the other Disney Plus shows as they're released, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Book of Boba Fett, stuff like that. Last thing, follow me on Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, NandoViewMovies on all of those platforms. I made a tweet after watching this episode of WandaVision that I had a weird theory, and a bunch of you DM'd me, and I spent like an hour that night just responding to a bunch of the first ones and playing like a little guessing game. If you could guess who I was talking about, then I would kind of explain the theory to you. I will say only one person successfully guessed it on that night. I took a couple of guesses, but still cool. And that's the kind of awesome stuff that you can find on the NandoViewMovies Twitter account. That's all I got. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.